Guys, what's going on? Today we're going to be looking at the artist Beksinski. Beksinski has become really popular in the last year or so due to the AI image generation applications that have really pulled from his work. Beksinski is a Polish artist. He's very much like H.R. Geiger in the sense that his views on modernity and of life in the 20th or 21st century are very dystopian. And he portrays this in these kind of fantastical images that feel like dreams, and they're quite unique and very bizarre. But I think that Beksinski, if he was asked what his paintings mean, he would say that they don't mean anything. And I think on one level, you could say he's correct. His paintings are about nothing. They're about nihilism. That's ultimately what his paintings are about. His paintings are, uh, you can interpret that response of saying that his paintings mean nothing in a couple of different ways. You could say that while clearly these images mean something, but I think really what it is that his paintings are capturing is nothing, is the nothingness that humanity becomes as it loses its connection to the spiritual, to the divine. And we see this represented here in this image of the cross. If I zoom in here, we see all this debris, and clearly there's a story being told here of there's a fire. There's a fire that seems to have been burning for ages, and it's completely clouded this landscape in smoke. And really, what's left standing is uh, this cross with this unidentifiable thing hanging from it. To me, I look at a lot of his paintings as representative of man's lost connection to the divine. Some people will look at these paintings and they'll be very disturbed by them and say, like, why would somebody paint something like this, right? And I can understand if you don't want to look at these paintings, but this is a forewarning. These paintings are quite dark, but I would say that um, what we should appreciate about this guy's work and what we should get from it is he was willing to portray things that were happening in society that people did not want to talk about. This is a Polish artist who grew up in the aftermath of World War II. Um, and so he saw and was aware of the Holocaust. And these images are most definitely inspired by the Holocaust. They're most definitely inspired by um, the the atrocities of World War II. As for example, there's a lot of images of figures being turned into these inanimate objects, which is something that Nazis did. Nazis would take the bodies of Jews and turn their skin into like lampshades and just insane things like that. Um, I look at these red shapes, these kind of like they almost look like umbrellas or something like that. Like these are possibly the soul going into leaving the planet, right? Again, we have a lot of Christian imagery, but the Christian imagery is left decrepit, right? And I think that Beksinski was one of these artists that was very similar to his understanding of the world was probably partly inspired by the insights of Friedrich Nietzsche, who was the writer who wrote that God is dead. And, I think that these images are a portrayal that's not something to uh, gloat about, right? This idea that the Western civilization has left behind any kind of connection to the spirit. Uh, what it has left us with is this nihilism um, that is completely inhuman, right? If we look at the modern world, we can see it in everything in the modern world today, right? This is obviously a depiction um, of the Holocaust like image. You have these figures standing in a grave, and then you have these other figures that are just kind of crowded up, almost as if they're trying to hide themselves from something. And it's interesting because then you have what looks like possibly this savior-like figure, but it also almost looks like an explosion, right? Um, the humans here, they seem to be retrograding back into some older evolution, some animalistic evolution. Again, another Christian iconography here. We have the cross with Jesus on it. It's almost hidden here. And then we have this figure that's wrapped around this tree with a skull underneath. And, things like this, images like this to me are just, they're so enigmatic and they're so interesting to look at and think about because he he's not the type of person who is just creating images to sell them. He's not creating these images in order to create a creepy effect in order to sell to someone. He's exploring the depths of his mind, of his soul, and he's mining that for these images in order to show the human condition, right? So I think there's a lot to get from his work, from looking at his work and really trying to understand it, not from a technique perspective, but just from an understanding perspective of what it is that art can be, right? If we look at the artists and painters of the old age, like Michelangelo or somebody like that, you can see that they are in some ways God's artist. That's the way that Michelangelo thought of himself. He thought of himself as he was God's artist. And I'm sure Beksinski probably had the same sort of sense of spirituality about his own work, but his paintings almost feel like Nietzsche's paintings, right? He's portraying something that is so horrid and so difficult for us to look at, and he does it in a way that is very striking. So, anyways, guys, thank you for watching this video. I'm going to continue posting these videos every week, and I've got some podcasts coming up, some updates on my comic. I just got settled into my new place, so please uh, like, subscribe, drop me a comment if you'd like to talk about Kaczynski's work. And thanks, guys. Take it easy.